tracking Hermine on the Weather Channel, and this is a live look at Cedar Key, Florida, where Hermine is pushing water in. Storm surge, a real threat. It is happening now. The wind still pushing the water in, and it is not over yet. Still a ways away from landfall, and even after landfall with Hurricane Hermine, the threats continue. In fact, the threats continuing potentially Panhandle right now, where we have been in the rain and wind, consistent gusts up to 40 miles an hour. The winds have been sustained between 20 and sometimes a little bit more than 30 miles an hour, and this rain has been persistent throughout much of the day. The past several hours, we've really been watching it pick up. Now, once Hermine makes it on shore, it's going to move north. It's going to move into Georgia, the Carolinas, and then further to the north, much farther to the north. And we're going to get a closer look at that in just a moment. But one of the next spots and the next stops will be in Georgia. Savannah, one of the spots there. That's where meteorologist Mike Bettis is right now. And Mike, right now, probably a nice day to be on the waterfront, or a nice evening. I know Savannah's such a fun town. However, things are going to change. And I asked Reynolds a little while ago, what's he worried about in the morning? Will you kind of help paint the picture of what you think it's going to look like there in Savannah when this thing comes through?
Well, first things first, Chris, we actually haven't been on with you in a while because we had a big outer band that came through with a lot of lightning. We had to take shelter. Just too dangerous to be out there and exposed, so this restaurant allowed us to be in this really deep porch here and overhang so we could shelter from that lightning. South side and north side, there's been lightning, so already starting to feel the effects of the outer bands of Hermine. But to your question, what happens tomorrow morning in a place like Savannah when the heavy rain begins and more consistent rain, and when the wind starts to pick up? I would suspect there are going to be a lot of low-lying areas around Chatham County, around Savannah, that'll take on some water, and it's going to be very unfortunate because we're going to flood in a few places. We're pretty certain of that. I don't think we're going to have as much surge here necessarily. Yes, we're going to have an onshore flow. There's the lightning once again. But you know, the thing is this. There's no evacuation in Chatham County. Out there at Tybee Island, not evacuating. But the height of this, when the center of circulation comes near Savannah, we may actually be at low tide, which is a true blessing. Middle of the afternoon tomorrow. High tide will be tomorrow morning and then tomorrow evening, but not during the middle of the day. But I think it's going to end up being more of a flooding issue in this location more than anything else. They've got, and power outages. I think we're going to have some power outages. Wind gust forecast here as high as 65. That thunder is loud. That means that strike was close. Well, we're talking about 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts. You're going to knock down a lot of trees here. We get a lot of trees, full canopy still because it's still summer, and you're going to bring those down. You're going to bring down some power lines. Chris, they have 300 power crews on standby now in Chatham County, spread out across the county, ready to react as soon as the weather allows them to. But I think the two big things to watch for here in Savannah, flooding and power outages.
Hey, Mike, real quick question. What are your thoughts, or what do you find interesting about what this storm does once it leaves you there in Savannah?
Well, I think it continues on. You know, South Carolina's in play, North Carolina's in play. We have tropical storm warnings that go all the way up through the beaches of North Carolina, right? Disaster declarations already in those states. But after that, you know, there's a little bit more question. The farther out the forecast you go, there's a little bit more uncertainty. But does a blocking high set up? Does this get forced back a little bit closer to maybe the Jersey Shore over the weekend? That's a possibility. We are not ruling that out. And at the very least, what it's going to create, Chris, is a bad weekend for all these people that want to be at the water's edge on the Jersey Shore. You want to be out there and you want to be having a good time. Rip currents are going to be a huge danger. You're going to have some water rise still with an onshore flow if the center of circulation goes out over water still. So I would say just keep a very close eye on this, even if you live into the Northeast, because you may not have this thing out of your hair this weekend.
All right, meteorologist Mike Bettis, we appreciate it there, reporting live from Savannah, dealing with some thunderstorms from the outer bands of Hurricane Hermine right now. And before we get to the weekend, we have to deal with what's going on right now. Let's go to the Weather Channel headquarters in Atlanta with Jackie Jarris with the very latest. Jackie.
Thanks, Chris. Well, we've got some new numbers we want to share with you right now, and new statistics just in. We've got 562,000 people that are under a hurricane warning, so in the worst of the danger zone. Dozens of shelters have opened up in Florida, Florida for the evacuees. A good, safe place. Hopefully those people have evacuated already. Governor Rick Scott says to sign up for emergency alerts on your phone and to keep your phone charged as well in case you lose power. Everybody should be prepared to lose power for at least up to 3 days. Plus, 100,000 people are estimated to lose power over the next few hours. That's according to Florida Power and Light. We'll have continuing coverage. Stay with us.
Tracking Hermine as this Category 1 hurricane is bearing down on Florida, with impacts already being felt as far north as Georgia right now. The wind picking up here in Apalachicola. We're looking also at the heavy rain coming down about 20 miles to the east of where I am right now in Carabel. That heavy rain is going to be something that people are going to have to deal with even away from the coastline, and even especially away from the coastline, where you can get quite a bit of localized flooding, especially some of the urban areas. And then there's the threat of water coming from the Gulf of Mexico itself. Let's look live right now at Cedar Key, where there's still that push of water coming on shore, covering the roads. Earlier, it was a lot more like just waves coming up. Now it's splashing over, and you're getting that consistent water push. All right, so let's come back here. We're getting a push of wind here in Apalachicola, and it's a little bit more erratic at this moment. The wind seems to be kind of spinning around. It was that consistent blowing right here, kind of from the northeast. We're starting to get it around, and I'm seeing more of these things getting closer to us, and some more palm fronds. But the thing is, they're all brown, which tells you that it's the weak stuff that's getting blown down and blown around. A much more serious situation with that tornado threat. In fact, let's go right now back to the Weather Channel headquarters in Atlanta. That's where our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, is still looking at all the latest warnings. And Dr. Forbes, this is a threat you saw days ago.
Yeah, indeed, and the timing is right. We have a new tornado watch that goes through the overnight hours, and right now 3 tornado warnings. They're in this right front quadrant, off to the right and ahead of the projected line perpendicular to the storm from around Cross City down to the coastal areas of the Big Bend south of Tallahassee. I'll come and do the individual tornado warnings. The other thing that is really worrying me is look at these 2 bands of very heavy rain, and these are oriented parallel to Hermine's motion. That means that anywhere from around Inglis to Gainesville to Jacksonville, Cross City, up into the Lake City area, there could be a lot of rain that falls overnight. So flooding also a growing problem as I'm seeing it. Now here's one of the tornado warnings. North and west of Cross City, Dixie, Lafayette, and Taylor counties. The circulation there getting close to the Cook's Hammock area and the Mayo area there from this particular storm. Then another storm that's heading off to the north across Lafayette and Taylor counties. That's going up to the areas north and east of the Deckle Beach area. Right now, that's pretty close to the Fenn Holloway area. Then this storm going more toward the north and west, several little storms there, circulations around the Scanlon area, Jefferson, Taylor, and Wakulla counties. This is down to the south and east of the Tallahassee area. So dangerous storms there. And I mentioned that brand new tornado watch. It now does include Savannah, Georgia, up to just south of Charleston, and still continues to include areas from east of Tallahassee to Jacksonville, down into areas north of the Tampa area. And that goes until 8 in the morning. So heavy rain and tornadoes, as well as all of those other threats that Chris is talking about. Chris?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Greg Forbes, our severe weather expert. And to get a closer look right now and some expert analysis on the latest position of this storm, let's keep it in the lab right now with senior hurricane specialist Brian Norcross. Any big changes, Brian?
Chris, we're standing by here any second for the new advisory from the National Hurricane Center. But let me show you the satellite right now, and I think there's some good news on the satellite. The center, or the eye that looked so well formed when it was back here, see how circular it was, or relatively well formed for this storm, now is much kind of broader and broken up. So we think at the very least that it is not going through any kind of intensification right before landfall. And we'll see what the National Hurricane Center analysis is. We also did not see any indication of intensification based on the information coming in from the hurricane hunters. Now here's the close-up of the radar coming out of Tallahassee. Here's Tallahassee up here. And this is the strongest part of the winds as the hurricane hunters found them. They're on the right side. So this is kind of that eye structure down here. And that's just about to come ashore over here in what's Taylor County. There's Perry, Florida there. Good news is this is a very, very unpopulated area. This is a wildlife refuge down here in this part of Perry County. So at least the worst of this surge, which is going to be very, very high, is going to be in a fairly unpopulated place. Now, this is a little more populated over here, and farther south it is as well. And these are the tornado warnings that Dr. Forbes was just talking about here in this strong band. So this band has strong weather in it. This is the strongest weather in this right here associated with this center of circulation, sort of like an eye. Now, I want to go a little down the coast a little bit, because there's where we were. So that's what we're looking at up there, where that storm surge is going to come in. Well, the storm surge is also coming in here at Cedar Key, and in fact, it's at a record level right now. It's up to 4.1 feet. And 4.3 feet, that's above normal high tide, and the tide is coming in, and it's got a few feet to go. All right, new advisory just in from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see what it says. There you see, still 80 miles an hour, pressure holding more or less steady, northeast of 14. So we're all, well, this says 10 o'clock. Is that the new one? All right, tell you what, let me go back to the storm surge. Again, we're having some kind of communication problem. Let me make the point here. So 4.3 feet, you say, okay, that doesn't sound that crazy, but that's above normal high tide. And then there's just, even if that basic amount of push from Hermine stays the same, then we have another 3 feet or so of tide to come in yet before it reaches high tide in the middle of the night. So we're going to almost certainly set a record there at Cedar Key. So, all right, the new, are the numbers the same? The 80 miles an hour and all the same? Has that updated now?
Yeah, all the same.
Except for some reason the time isn't updated. Yeah. But okay, but the numbers are right, but the time is wrong for 40 miles east of Apalachicola. That's correct.
And no changes.
And otherwise no changes. All right. So for some reason our clock didn't update, but that is the new advisory. That is the 11 o'clock advisory here from the National Hurricane Center. All right, Jim Cantori is with us. Let's send it to Jim. What you got going there, Jim?
Hey, Brian. Yeah, we're in Carabel. Last time we got hit with a tropical storm here was 2008. The name was Faye. It actually came in right here. And believe it or not, the circulation center is going to be very close to Carabel in terms of when it comes in. It'll be here, maybe Sop-Choppy, St. Mark's. That's kind of the pecking order as you go off to my northeast. But we're a little protected right now because winds are starting to come around from the northeast a little bit as we're on the western side of that circulation center or developing eye wall. Before I actually walk out here, I want to say we were down in Cedar Key this morning, and right now where that water is, if you know where you are in terms of the inundation, we could easily see 10 feet inundation down there, which is pretty incredible, guys. Pretty incredible. All right, so here's what we're looking at. We're walking down on the dock a little bit. The water is up all the way to the top of the dock right now. The boats are all moored down. This is a huge marina area here in Carabel. The good news is, as we get into the next couple of hours, we're going to watch that wind stay out of the north, and that really helps us here because we're oriented northeast to southwest. All right, so winds north pushes water away versus Cedar Key that's getting slammed with water being pushed onshore. So it's a whole different story in through there. You can see that folks are here. Some of them actually staying on their boats. They're parking in through here, so they're not worried about the water coming up in this parking lot, which is great news. Certainly the position that we're in, and we see where this was. Now, a day ago where the track was, that's a different story, but it obviously has shifted east. We've got radar satellite confirmation of that, minimal hurricane or not. It's all about the direction of the wind in through here, and that's what we're looking at. So the power outages will continue to mount. That will be one of our big concerns with the winds. Remember, they're going to be shifting around that circulation center. They're all on the east side of this, out of the south, southeast, and as the thing starts to pull away and come ashore, even though the circulation will weaken, and there's signs of that now from the hurricane hunters, the winds are going to come around from a different direction. Remember, this area has been incredibly wet over the last 30 days. Before Louisiana had the catastrophe, this area was soaked with a tremendous amount of rain. Don't forget that. So you've got trees that are sitting in waterlogged areas, and you do the teeter-tottering with the wind field, and you're going to see some of those come down. Two types of trees dominate this area, live oak and pine. Live oak is the heart and soul. It's harder than rock. Pine is very, very soft wood. That's what's going to come down first. All right, Chris Warren, you're about 20 miles to my southwest in Apalachicola. Chris, you probably have a north wind as well of some sort, right?
You know what? I was just going to ask you the same thing. Are you getting the north right now? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think I'm more northeast right now. Almost a little calm. It's kind of weird. I mean, we don't have a very strong wind, and I can't even. Earlier on, we could hear it howling. I'm going to walk over here. Turn my mic up a little bit, Bobby. Turn my mic up. I'm gonna just be quiet. I want you to hear the frogs here. You know, I'm wondering if we're kind of getting into close to this, the western side of this circulation center here a little bit. There's a chance we could get into that, Chris. The winds are starting to actually calm a little bit.
Well, we have the opposite. They've been picking up for about the past 15 minutes, and it's been interesting over the past 5 hours. I watched the winds go from really east, coming right across the Apalachicola River, and then more of a northeasterly direction coming at us. Right. And now it is more of a north, almost, I think this might have a little bit more to do with the shape of the city, but almost more of a northwest, almost, a little bit. So we've been kind of seeing the winds shifting, and as they have been, too, we've been seeing some of this, Jim. We've been seeing, again, not a lot of green. This is a new one that just blew in here, but more of the brown. So it tells you it's going to be, you know, this stuff is a little weaker right here. You know, it's dying or dead, so it's not going to be, you know, hanging on. It's not as strong, so it's going to come down, and that's the same thing right here. We've been seeing more and more of this. But yeah, Jim, it seems like that the winds, if anything, where we are, have really been picking up, and the rain intensity as well has been picking up.
You know, it's interesting, too, because according to the Hurricane Center advisory, you're 40 miles, the center is 40 miles east of you. So you are on the western side of it, and that totally makes sense. And what's interesting is it's really not this perfect circular, symmetric eye like you have in some of the stronger hurricanes, okay? It's kind of wobbly, and it's got some weird little vortices spinning around it in kind of an egg shape. So either way, part of that or all of that is going to kind of come on shore here around where I am in Carabel, Sop Choppy as well, St. Mark's. And that's where you'll see if you're still got power up